Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're looking at biopharmaceuticals
Okay.
with a company that's been, making some moves.
Right.
Aurinia Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Ticker symbol AUPH.
Interesting company.
They've had some exciting developments lately, especially with their recent earnings report.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're here to unpack it all for you.
Well, one of the most interesting things is how Aurinia beat those earnings expectations.
Yeah.
They reported 1 cent earnings per share
Okay.
for Q4 and for the full year of 2024,
Okay.
which actually exceeded the predicted loss of 2 cents. So they were...
So that's a strong indicator
Yeah.
of profitability down the road.
For sure. And we know investors always like to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. It signals a positive shift.
Right.
But their revenue didn't quite hit the mark, right?
That's true. They came in just under projections
Okay.
at $59.167 million
Okay.
against an expected $59.94 million.
Yeah. But their overall performance is still solid,
Yeah.
especially when you consider their full-year net product revenue is actually right in line with projections of 210 to 220 million.
Okay, so we've got sort of a mixed bag here.
Yeah.
Exceeding EPS forecasts, but falling slightly short on revenue.
Right.
What was the market's reaction to all of this news?
Well, an EPS beat like this usually creates positive market response,
Yeah.
and we are seeing that.
Okay.
It reinforces the idea that they are on the right track towards consistent profitability,
Yeah.
making them very attractive for investors.
It's interesting you say that because even before these earnings were released,
Right.
a UPH stock was already on an upward trend.
Yeah.
What factors were contributing to that?
Well, AUPH has seen some really impressive gains.
Okay.
Over the past 3 months, the stock is up over 50%,
Wow.
and over 6 months, closer to 67%.
Okay.
Several factors playing a role in this surge.
Right.
First, we need to consider their Q3 2024 results, which were released last November. They demonstrated some pretty significant growth,
All right.
with a 24% year-over-year revenue increase,
Okay.
reaching $67.8 million.
Yeah, that's substantial growth.
It is.
What was driving those numbers?
Though their key drug, LUPKYNIS,
Okay.
was a major factor.
Right.
Sales jumped 36% to reach $55.5 million.
Got it.
Additionally, Aurinia also announced a restructuring initiative
Right.
with a 45% workforce reduction.
Wow. 45%. That's a pretty bold move.
It is. It sent a clear message to the market that they were really prioritizing efficiency
Okay.
and core growth areas.
Yeah.
The market responded very favorably to this,
Yeah.
and we saw a 14% stock surge on the day of that announcement.
So it seems that restructuring really set the stage for this continued upward momentum.
I think so.
But I'm guessing there are other elements at play here as well, right?
Yeah, it wasn't just about financials.
Okay.
Couple other key developments, I think, fueled this upward trajectory.
Right.
In September of 2024, LUPKYNIS received approval in Japan,
Wow. Okay.
expanding their market reach
Huge.
significantly.
Like, yeah.
And then in mid-November, they presented new clinical data at the American College of Rheumatology Convergence,
Oh, wow.
which I think further boosted confidence in the company
Okay.
and its future prospects.
So let's talk about something that's been generating a lot of buzz around Aurinia.
Okay.
The speculation of a potential buyout.
Yeah.
Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, it's true. There are these persistent rumors circulating
Okay.
that Aurinia, with its current market cap estimated between $1.3 and $1.5 billion,
Okay.
is a prime target for acquisition.
So which companies are considered to be the most likely suitors here?
Names like Gilead
Okay.
and Bristol Myers Squibb
Oh.
have been mentioned frequently as potential buyers.
All right.
While there was an attempt to sell Aurinia back in February of 2024,
Okay.
that didn't pan out.
Right.
The speculation hasn't really died down.
All this talk of growth and buyouts is certainly exciting.
Yeah.
But what about the potential downsides?
Sure.
Are there any risks that investors should be aware of when it comes to Aurinia?
Of course, as with any investment, there are always risks.
Right.
One concern, I think, is the recent slowing of growth,
Okay.
particularly the dip in sales observed between Q2 and Q3 of 2024.
Okay.
Competition is another significant factor
Right.
that can't be ignored.
You make a good point. So who are the major players Aurinia is up against in this space?
Well, Biogen
Oh.
and Roche are two significant competitors
Yeah.
in the lupus nephritis market.
Right.
Additionally, the emergence of these new cell therapies
Right.
represent a potential disruptor
Yeah.
to traditional treatment methods like LUPKYNIS.
It seems like investors have a lot to consider with Aurinia.
Absolutely.
Can you break down maybe the potential opportunities
Sure.
and risks associated with investing in this company?
Absolutely. Let's start with the positive.
Okay.
Aurinia, I think, represents a compelling investment opportunity for a few key reasons.
Oh.
Their valuation is very reasonable right now,
Right.
with a price-to-sales ratio below 7,
All right.
which is relatively low
Yeah.
for a biotech company
Right.
with a potentially blockbuster drug like LUPKYNIS.
So their valuation seems attractive. What else makes them stand out?
Well, their strong cash position is another point in their favor,
Right.
as is their demonstrated commitment to this strategic restructuring,
Yeah.
as evidenced by the workforce reduction.
Right.
These factors, I think, suggest a positive outlook
Right.
for future profitability and growth.
For sure.
Now, for those looking for short-term gains,
Yeah.
there's a chance to capitalize on this momentum
Right.
generated by these positive earnings.
Okay.
Analyst sentiment is also turning increasingly positive,
Okay.
with RBC raising their price target to $9
Right.
and Leerink projecting optimistic EPS for Q1 2025.
This all sounds very promising.
Yeah.
But I know you mentioned risks earlier.
Right.
What should investors be cautious about?
The most significant risk, I think, with Aurinia is that their success heavily relies on the performance of LUPKYNIS.
Okay.
Any setbacks the drug faces,
Yeah.
whether it's increased competition
Right.
or challenges with insurance coverage
Yep.
and reimbursements,
Makes sense.
could have a ripple effect on the entire company.
For sure.
And as we touched on, the slowing growth rate is something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
They'll need to demonstrate, I think, a re-acceleration of sales to really solidify their position.
Yeah, that's a really insightful breakdown of
Yeah.
the potential rewards
Yeah,
and risks associated with Aurinia.
of course.
What stands out to you the most about this company?
You know what I find fascinating is that delicate balance
Yeah.
between their potential
Right.
and the inherent risks.
For sure.
On one hand, you've got a company with a potentially game-changing drug,
Yeah.
a reasonable valuation,
Right.
and a streamlined operational structure. On the
Yeah.
other hand, they face a very dynamic and competitive market
For sure.
with the need to reignite sales growth to secure their position. It
Yeah.
will be very interesting to see how all of this unfolds
Absolutely.
over the coming months.
I agree. It seems like Aurinia is at a pivotal point in their journey,
Yeah,
and the next few quarters will be very telling.
absolutely.
We'll continue our discussion in part 2 of this episode, where we'll take an even deeper look at Aurinia Pharmaceuticals
Sounds good.
and explore more of the intricacies
Looking forward to it.
surrounding this intriguing company.
Yeah, me too.
Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Well,
We're continuing our in-depth look at Aurinia Pharmaceuticals. Ticker symbol, AUPH.
right.
Before the break, we talked about LUPKYNIS, their lead drug.
Yeah,
But they also have another potential player in their pipeline, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
It's called AUR200.
Okay.
And while it's still in phase 1 trials,
Right.
it represents, I think, a very exciting prospect for Aurinia. If these trials yield positive results,
Yeah.
it could significantly enhance the company's overall value proposition.
So to recap,
Yeah,
we're looking at a company with a potentially blockbuster drug
right.
already on the market.
Yeah.
A promising new candidate making its way through the pipeline,
Right.
reasonable valuation,
Mm.
and a lean, efficient operational structure.
No.
They're also on the verge of profitability.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot to like about Aurinia from an investment perspective.
There certainly are many positive indicators.
Yeah.
However, as we discussed earlier,
Right.
potential investors also need to consider the risks
For sure.
alongside the potential rewards.
Of course.
Competition in this market is intense,
Yeah.
and reigniting that sales growth for LUPKYNIS
Right.
is really crucial
Yeah.
for their long-term success.
So let's delve a little deeper into those risks.
Sure.
What are the most significant threats to Aurinia's continued growth and success?
Well, as I mentioned before, the performance of LUPKYNIS is paramount.
Okay.
If sales falter or if any unexpected challenges arise
All right.
with the drug,
Yeah.
it could have sort of a cascading effect on
Ah.
the entire company.
Right.
It's also essential to remain vigilant about the competitive landscape.
Yeah.
Biogen and Roche are very formidable players
Right.
in this space.
Yeah.
And the emergence of these cell therapies add another layer of complexity.
You mentioned cell therapies earlier.
Yeah.
For those who might not be familiar, could you briefly explain what they are and why they're considered a potential threat to traditional treatments like LUPKYNIS?
Yeah, of course.
Um,
So cell therapies represent a completely new approach to treating diseases.
Okay.
And they involve modifying a patient's own cells in a lab
okay.
to target and attack the disease
Okay.
in the context of lupus nephritis.
Right.
Cell therapies could potentially offer longer-lasting effects
Okay.
and fewer side effects
Yeah, we-
compared to traditional drugs, which makes them, I think, a significant potential competitor
Yeah.
for Aurinia in the long run.
So, in essence, Aurinia needs to maintain its competitive edge
Yeah.
while also keeping an eye on these emerging technologies
Yeah.
that could disrupt the market.
Uh-huh.
What other risks should investors be aware of?
Well, we also need to consider, I think, the possibility of reimbursement challenges.
Okay.
If insurance companies become hesitant to cover LUPKYNIS
Right.
due to cost or other factors,
Yeah.
it could significantly impact Aurinia's revenue stream.
It seems like a lot hinges on their ability to execute their strategy effectively.
It does.
They need to continue driving LUPKYNIS sales,
Right.
navigate the complexities of these insurance reimbursements,
Yep.
advance AUR 200 through clinical trials,
Mm-hmm.
and stay ahead of the curve when it comes to these emerging technologies like cell therapies.
Right.
It's a lot to juggle.
It's a lot.
Given all this information, what advice would you give to our listeners who are trying to determine how Aurinia might fit into their investment strategy?
Well, that's a very personal decision, I think.
Yeah.
That depends on individual risk tolerance
Of course.
and investment goals.
Right.
You know, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Of course.
However, I think it's crucial for potential investors
Yeah.
to recognize that Aurinia presents both
Right.
significant potential rewards
Yeah.
and inherent risks
For sure.
for investors who are comfortable with volatility
Yeah.
and a longer-term investment horizon.
Okay.
Aurinia might be a compelling option
Right.
for those seeking a more conservative approach.
Yeah.
It might be prudent to wait for further evidence of that sustained growth
Okay.
and successful navigation of that competitive landscape.
That's a very balanced perspective.
Thanks.
It's so important for investors to do their due diligence,
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
consider their individual circumstances,
Right.
and perhaps consult with a financial advisor
Yeah.
before making any investment decisions.
Yeah. Good advice.
We've covered a lot of ground so far,
We have.
discussing the financials,
Yeah.
the potential for a buyout,
Uh-huh.
the competition,
Right.
the various risks involved.
Yep.
Is there anything else we should consider when evaluating Aurinia?
Well, one aspect that I think is often overlooked
Yeah.
is the human element.
Okay.
You know, Aurinia is developing treatments for lupus nephritis,
Yeah.
a very serious autoimmune disease
Right.
that can drastically impact people's quality of life.
Of course.
If they are successful,
Yeah.
it can make a real difference for countless patients worldwide.
That's such an important point.
It is.
It's easy to get caught up in the financial aspects
It is.
and lose sight of those real-world implications.
Yeah, for sure.
Aurinia's work has the potential to improve people's health and well-being,
Right.
and that carries significance beyond, mere financial gains.
Absolutely.
Right.
And this focus on improving patients' lives
Yeah.
can sometimes influence investor sentiment as well. You know, people often feel drawn to companies that are striving to make a positive impact on the world.
For sure.
And when you combine that
Right.
with solid financials and a promising growth trajectory,
Yeah.
it creates a very compelling narrative
Absolutely.
for potential investors.
As we wrap up this part of our discussion on Aurinia,
Yeah.
what's the key takeaway you would like our listeners to remember?
Well, I believe the most important takeaway
Yeah.
is that Aurinia is a company with immense potential,
Right?
but also faces inherent risks
Yeah.
in a very dynamic and competitive market.
Right.
Investors need to carefully weigh
Yeah.
the potential rewards against those challenges
For sure.
before making any decisions.
Right.
The next few months will be pivotal for Aurinia
Okay.
as they navigate this competitive landscape
Yeah.
and aim to reignite sales growth for LUPKYNIS.
That's a great point to end on.
Thanks.
We'll continue our exploration of Aurinia Pharmaceuticals
Okay.
in part 3 of this episode.
Sounds
Stay tuned for more insights and analysis. Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast, everyone. We're wrapping up our discussion on Aurinia Pharmaceuticals, ticker symbol AUPH.
right.
We've covered a lot of ground from their recent financial performance
We have.
and the potential for a buyout to the competitive landscape and the challenges that they face.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating discussion.
Oh, it has.
We've explored their journey towards profitability,
Right.
the excitement, I think, surrounding LUPKYNIS,
Yeah.
and their strategic moves to position themselves for future growth.
You've really painted a vivid picture of both the opportunities and the potential pitfalls.
Sure.
But before we wrap up, I'd love to get your expert opinion.
Okay.
Given everything we've discussed,
Yeah.
what's your overall take on Aurinia as an investment opportunity?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
From my perspective, Aurinia undeniably presents a very intriguing proposition.
Okay.
Their strategic focus on LUPKYNIS,
Right.
coupled with their proactive restructuring, and the potential upside of AUR 200 suggests a company poised for growth. The fact that they're currently trading at a relatively low price-to-sales ratio
Right.
further adds to their appeal.
So are you suggesting that they might be undervalued by the market right now?
It's certainly a possibility worth considering.
Okay.
And let's not forget those persistent rumors of a potential buyout,
Right.
which could significantly boost their share price.
Yeah.
However, we can't ignore the risks.
Of course not.
The competition in the lupus nephritis market is fierce,
Right.
and any setbacks with LUPKYNIS sales could really impact their bottom line.
It seems like investors really need to carefully weigh the potential for high rewards against those inherent risks.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to our listeners who are trying to decide whether Aurinia is the right investment for them?
Well, I've always emphasized the importance of aligning your investment choices with your personal risk tolerance and financial goals.
Okay.
There's no one-size-fits-all answer here. Aurinia could be a great fit for investors comfortable with some volatility
Right.
and who have a longer-term investment horizon.
Right.
For those who prefer a more conservative approach, it might be wise to wait for more concrete signs of sustained growth
Okay.
before making a move.
That's a very insightful perspective.
Thanks.
It really highlights the need for careful consideration and due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to share with our audience as we wrap up this discussion on Aurinia Pharmaceuticals?
Just remember that the biotech sector is inherently volatile,
Right.
but it also offers the potential for very significant returns.
Right.
Aurinia Pharmaceuticals, with their innovative treatments and strategic vision,
Yeah.
is a company worth watching closely.
Absolutely.
Whether you decide to invest or simply follow their progress,
Right.
the coming chapters in Aurinia's story, I think, promise to be exciting.
Well said. That concludes our in-depth look at Aurinia Pharmaceuticals.
Great. Thanks for having me.
We hope you found this episode of Investing Talk Podcast informative and engaging. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share this episode with your fellow investors, then leave a comment below with your thoughts on Aurinia. Until next time, happy investing.